You people disgust me! Judge Richard Thornfield spits the words at Diana Washington like venom. His face twists with pure hatred as he glares down from his bench. Diana stands at the defendant's table, her body rigid with shock. Thornfield slowly rises from his chair, his black robes billowing as he points an accusing finger directly at her face. "Look at you," he sneers, his voice getting louder. "Acting like you belong here." He makes an exaggerated gesture of wiping his hands on his robes, as if touching the same gavel that will judge her has contaminated him. The courtroom falls deadly silent, except for the sound of his heavy breathing. Thornfield sits back down and crosses his arms, staring at Diana with undisguised contempt. "Your kind needs to learn respect." Diana's hands shake as she grips the edge of the table. Her professional composure cracks as tears threaten to spill. Have you ever seen evil hide behind a judge's robe? 3 days earlier, Diana Washington's sneakers hit the pavement at exactly 6 a.m. Steam rises from her coffee mug as she stretches on her front porch, the American flag above her door fluttering in the morning breeze. Her modest, 2-story home sits quietly on Maple Street, identical to dozens of others in this middle-class neighborhood. No security detail, no official cars, just Diana in her worn running clothes, looking like any other resident starting their day. She jogs past Pete's hardware store, where the owner waters his sidewalk plants, past Millbrook Diner, where the smell of bacon drifts through screen doors, past First National Bank, where early employees unlock glass doors. "Morning, Diana," calls out Mrs. Carter from her garden. "How's the tomato plant I gave you?" "Growing like crazy," Diana waves back, slowing her pace. "Your green thumb is magic." This is her routine. Every morning the same route, the same friendly faces. For 15 years, she's been just Diana from Maple Street to these people. At the corner store, Jose Martinez greets her with his usual warm smile. The bell chimes as she pushes through the door, cold air conditioning hitting her sweat-dampened skin. "The usual?" Jose asks, already reaching for her favorite energy drink. "You know it," Diana grins. "How's Maria's college application going?" "Berkeley accepted her." Jose beams. "Full scholarship for engineering." "That's incredible." "You must be so proud." Their conversation flows naturally. No formality. No "yes, governor" or "no, ma'am." Just two neighbors sharing good news on a Tuesday morning. Other customers browse the aisles, a construction worker grabbing coffee, a young mother with a sleepy toddler, an elderly man counting change for lottery tickets. They nod politely at Diana, treating her like family. Back in her car, Diana checks her phone calendar. 3 budget meetings today. A healthcare summit tomorrow. Decisions that will affect millions of lives across the state. But here in Millbrook, she's just the woman who remembers your kids' names and asks about your sick relatives. Her Honda Civic is nothing special. No license plates that scream importance. No tinted windows hiding powerful passengers. Just a reliable car that gets her from point A to point B. 20 minutes across town, Judge Richard Thornfield's black Mercedes pulls into the courthouse parking lot. The reserved space marked JUDGE gleams in the morning sun. His Italian leather shoes click against marble steps as he enters the imposing stone building. Thornfield has ruled this courtroom for 12 years. His reputation precedes him through every hallway, every law office, every community meeting where his name gets whispered. He's tougher on certain types, defense attorneys warn their clients, especially if you don't look like him. The numbers don't lie. Black defendants receive sentences 3 times harsher than white defendants for identical crimes. Latino families pay higher fines for the same violations. Complaints pile up in filing cabinets, but nothing ever changes. Local activists tried organizing. Community leaders filed formal grievances. Nothing stuck. Thornfield remained untouchable, protected by his position and political connections. Inside his chambers, law books line mahogany shelves. Diplomas from prestigious universities hang in expensive frames. Photos show him shaking hands with governors, senators, wealthy donors. But there's something else in those photos. Something harder to see but impossible to miss once you notice it. Every single person he's pictured with looks exactly like him. Same skin color, same background, same world. His secretary brings morning coffee in bone china cups. Court clerks speak to him in hushed, respectful tones. Bailiffs snap to attention when he enters the room. This is his kingdom, his domain, and he rules it with an iron fist wrapped in judicial robes. Diana finishes her morning jog and heads inside to shower. Her guest bathroom contains the same basic toiletries found in any middle-class home. Her kitchen smells like toast and orange juice, not gourmet meals prepared by executive chefs. Photos on her refrigerator show family barbecues, community festivals, local charity events. She's in every picture, but nothing identifies her as anyone special. Just a neighbor, a friend, a woman who happens to live on Maple Street. In a few hours, these two worlds will collide in ways neither of them can imagine. One represents justice for all. The other represents justice for some. One believes in equality under law. The other believes some people deserve better treatment than others. One has spent her career serving others. The other has spent his career serving himself. But right now, they're just two people getting ready for what they think will be an ordinary day. They have no idea how wrong they are. Diana turns her Honda Civic onto Main Street at 7:30 p.m., grocery bags rustling in her back seat. The smell of fresh bread from Miller's Bakery mingles with evening air flowing through her slightly cracked windows. Classical jazz plays softly from her radio as she approaches the four-way stop near downtown Millbrook. She's made this drive hundreds of times. Every stop sign is memorized. Every speed limit is second nature. Her turn signal clicks rhythmically as she prepares to head home to Maple Street, the sound echoing in the quiet evening. Red and blue lights explode in her rearview mirror like fireworks against the darkening sky. Diana's heart sinks into her stomach. She pulls over safely beside Peterson's hardware store, the familiar neon open sign casting purple shadows across her dashboard. Turning off her music, she retrieves her license and registration from the glove compartment with practiced movements. Her hands remain visible on the steering wheel, positioned at 10 and 2, as heavy footsteps approach her window. The leather of her steering wheel feels cold against her palms. Officer Bradley Martinez, no relation to Jose from the corner store, towers over her car like a dark mountain. His hand rests on his weapon holster as he taps aggressively on her window with his flashlight, the metal creating sharp clicking sounds against the glass. License and registration. Now. His tone could freeze summer air. Diana hands over her documents with steady hands, despite the adrenaline making her pulse thunder in her ears. Good evening, officer. May I ask what this is about? Bradley snatches the papers without making eye contact. His flashlight beam cuts through the darkness like a sword as he examines them with exaggerated scrutiny, holding them close to his face like he's searching for hidden messages or forgeries. Diana Washington. Washington. He draws out her last name like it tastes bitter on his tongue. That name is supposed to mean something to me? Are you some kind of celebrity or something? I don't understand the question, sir. Bradley circles her car like a predator stalking wounded prey. His boots crunch on loose gravel as he peers through every window, his flashlight beam dancing across her grocery bags, searching for any excuse to escalate the situation. Got alcohol in those bags? He demands, pointing his light at her back seat. Just groceries, officer. Milk, bread, vegetables. We'll see about that. Bradley circles to her trunk, testing the handle. Pop it open. Officer, do you have probable cause for a search? His face darkens like storm clouds. Don't get smart with me, lady. Pop the trunk or I'll get a warrant. Diana knows he can't get a warrant for a traffic stop, but she also knows arguing will only make things worse. She presses the trunk release button, and Bradley rifles through her grocery bags like he's searching for contraband. Milk cartons, whole wheat bread, fresh vegetables from the farmer's market. He holds up each item like it might transform into evidence of wrongdoing. "Where are you coming from at this time of night?" Bradley demands, slamming her trunk shut hard enough to make the car shake. "The grocery store. I work long hours and shop in the evenings." "Long hours doing what? Welfare office?" The racist assumption hits Diana like a slap. "I work in government administration." "Government, huh?" Bradley snorts. "Figures. Another bureaucrat living off taxpayer money." "Failure to signal properly," he announces, returning to her window and pulling out his citation book. "Expired registration, suspicious behavior, uncooperative attitude, driving while distracted." Diana's jaw drops. "Officer, I signaled at every turn." "My registration hasn't expired. I renewed it just last month, and I've been completely cooperative." "Don't argue with me, lady." Bradley's voice rises as spittle flies from his lips. "You were driving erratically, weaving between lanes, speeding through residential areas." "That's absolutely not true. I was driving the speed limit in a straight line. There were no other cars around me to weave between." Bradley stomps back to his patrol car, his heavy boots creating small dust clouds with each angry step. Making an exaggerated show of his radio call, he speaks loud enough for half the neighborhood to hear. "Unit 47 to dispatch. Suspicious vehicle, possible DUI, uncooperative driver, potential drug possession investigation." His voice carries clearly through the quiet evening air. Static crackles from his radio as dispatch responds with routine acknowledgement. Diana sits perfectly still, watching her neighbors emerge from their houses like prairie dogs sensing danger. Porch lights flick on one by one, creating pools of yellow light along the street. Mrs. Carter appears on her front steps, concern etched deep in the lines of her weathered face. Jose Martinez hurries over from his store, which stays open late on weeknights. The bell above his door chimes as he exits, and his footsteps slap against concrete. "Everything okay here, Diana?" "Officer, is there a problem?" "Move along, sir." Bradley's hand moves to his weapon, fingers drumming against the holster. "This is official police business, nothing to see here." "I'm just checking on my neighbor," Jose says calmly, his voice steady despite the obvious tension. "I said move along, now, before I arrest you for interfering with a police investigation and obstruction of justice." Jose reluctantly steps back but doesn't leave entirely. He pulls out his phone, holding it low but keeping the camera pointed toward the scene. The screen's blue glow illuminates his concerned face. More neighbors begin gathering. Tom Peterson emerges from his hardware store, still wearing his work apron. Sarah Williams from the flower shop stands in her doorway, arms crossed. Even teenagers from the basketball court have wandered over to see what's happening. Bradley notices the growing crowd and becomes more aggressive. "This is what happens when you people don't follow the law," he announces loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Think you can do whatever you want in our neighborhoods." The collective gasp from the neighbors is audible. Bradley returns with his citation book, writing furiously. The pen scratches against paper like claws on wood as he fills out multiple tickets with obvious relish. Reckless driving, expired registration, failure to signal, suspicious behavior, uncooperative attitude, and resisting investigation. He lists each charge with obvious satisfaction, reading them aloud like a proclamation. Court dates next Tuesday, 9 a.m. sharp with Judge Thornfield, with... Diana's blood runs cold at the judge's name. Everyone in Millbrook knows Judge Thornfield's reputation, the way he treats certain defendants, the way justice seems to have a different meaning in his courtroom. "Officer, I haven't done anything wrong. I was driving normally with completely valid registration. Bradley leans close to her window, his breath fogging the glass and creating a humid cloud between them. I know your type. Think you can move into our neighborhood and do whatever you want. Act like you own the place. Time someone taught you respect. I've lived in this community for 15 years, Diana replies, struggling to keep her voice steady despite the rage building in her chest. I've been a good neighbor. I've never had any trouble with the law. First time for everything, Washington. Bradley tears the citations from his book and throws them through her window like confetti. The papers scatter across her lap, some falling to the floor. Judge Thornfield's gonna teach you and your kind some proper manners. He doesn't take kindly to troublemakers. Children peek through curtains while parents whisper among themselves, their voices creating a low buzz of concern and outrage. See you in court, Washington. Bradley spits her name like it's profanity, like it leaves a bad taste in his mouth. Maybe next time you'll think twice about disrespecting our community and our laws. Maybe you'll learn your place. He struts back to his patrol car with exaggerated swagger, slamming the door hard enough to rattle windows in nearby houses. The engine roars to life as he speeds away, leaving Diana alone under the harsh glare of streetlights, with a growing crowd of concerned neighbors surrounding her like a protective shield. Tuesday morning arrives gray and humid. Diana sits in her home office at 6 a.m., legal documents spread across her mahogany desk like battle plans. Coffee steams from her favorite mug as she reviews Bradley's citations for the 12th time. Each charge stings with its obvious fabrication. Her hands trace over the official letterhead as morning light filters through Venetian blinds, casting prison bar shadows across the papers. Photos on her desk show her with diverse groups: community leaders, advocacy organizations, civil rights pioneers. Awards and certificates line the walls, but camera angles keep their details obscured in morning shadows. Her phone buzzes constantly. Voicemails from constituents across the state pile up like autumn leaves. Budget meetings, healthcare summits, environmental legislation. The weight of governing 40 million people presses against her shoulders. But today, she's just Diana Washington, defendant. James, it's me, she says into her phone, speaking to her personal attorney. I need representation for this morning's hearing. James Mitchell's voice crackles through the speaker. Diana, this is insane. One phone call and this disappears completely. Why put yourself through Thornfield's circus? Because if I don't experience what other people go through, how can I fix it? Thornfield has a reputation. He's particularly harsh with defendants who look like us. Diana's jaw tightens. Then maybe it's time someone with resources experiences his bias firsthand. At 8:15 a.m., Diana's Honda Civic pulls into the courthouse parking lot. Protesters already gather outside with Justice for All signs, their voices creating a low hum of dissent. Word has spread through the community faster than wildfire. Some signs read, "Stop racial profiling." Others declare, "Thornfield must go." Diana recognizes many faces. People she's jogged past, neighbors she's chatted with, community members who've experienced similar treatment. Mrs. Carter approaches her car window as Diana parks. "We're all here for you, dear." What happened wasn't right. "Thank you," Diana replies, genuinely moved. That means everything. Inside the courthouse, marble floors echo with footsteps and whispered conversations. The building's imposing architecture seems designed to intimidate rather than inspire confidence in justice. James Mitchell waits near the metal detectors, his expensive briefcase and tailored suit marking him as serious legal representation. At 45, he's built a reputation defending civil rights cases against impossible odds. "Ready for this?" he asks, adjusting his tie. "As ready as anyone can be for judicial theater." Officer Bradley materializes near the courtroom entrance like a bad omen. His uniform is crisp, his posture military straight, his sneer unchanged from their previous encounter. "Hope you brought your checkbook, Washington," he announces loudly enough for other defendants to hear. Judge, don't go easy on your kind, especially troublemakers who think they're special. James Mitchell steps forward. Officer Bradley, that's completely inappropriate and potentially actionable. Just stating facts, counselor. Your client's about to learn how things work around here. Maybe she'll finally understand her place. Other defendants in the hallway, predominantly black and Latino, exchange knowing glances. This isn't their first time hearing such predictions. An elderly black man sitting on a bench shakes his head sadly. Same story, different day, he mutters to his companion. A young Latina woman clutches her purse tighter, fear evident in her dark eyes. My cousin warned me about this, Judge, she whispers. Diana observes everything. Mental notes form like legal briefs in her mind, evidence of systematic bias accumulating with each overheard conversation. At 8:45 a.m., the courtroom doors open. The gallery fills quickly with community members, curious onlookers, and local activists who've made attending Thornfield's hearings a form of protest. The courtroom itself reeks of old wood polish and stale coffee. Fluorescent lights buzz overhead like angry insects. Diana takes her place at the defendant's table, studying case files while conversations swirl around her. Behind her, supporters whisper encouragement. Jose Martinez sits in the front row, his phone ready to record if permitted. Tom Peterson from the hardware store nods supportively. Even teenagers from the basketball court have shown up, sensing this is bigger than a simple traffic case. At precisely 9 a.m., a bailiff enters through a side door. His booming voice cuts through conversations like a machete. All rise! The Honorable Judge Richard Thornfield presiding over Millbrook County Court. Everyone stands as Thornfield enters with theatrical flourish. His black robes billow dramatically as he surveys his domain like a medieval lord surveying his peasants. His pale eyes immediately find Diana, and his expression hardens into granite. He makes an exaggerated show of adjusting his glasses, as if getting a better look at something distasteful. The gavel strikes once against polished wood. Be seated. Case number 2024 TR 4471. The State of Pennsylvania versus Diana Washington. Thornfield's voice drips with disdain as he pronounces her name. Several people in the gallery shift uncomfortably at his obvious bias. Prosecutor Stevens rises from his table like an actor taking center stage. At 40, he's built his career on playing to Thornfield's prejudices, understanding exactly which buttons to push. Your Honor, this defendant showed blatant disregard for our community's safety and values. She was observed driving recklessly through residential neighborhoods, arguing with law enforcement, and displaying the kind of entitled attitude that threatens public order. James Mitchell's pen flies across his legal pad. Objection, Your Honor. There's no evidence supporting these characterizations. Overruled. Thornfield doesn't even look up from his papers. Continue, Mr. Stevens. Stevens paces dramatically before the bench. This case represents everything wrong with people who think laws don't apply to them, who believe their previous experiences or background grants them special treatment. Diana notices Thornfield nodding approvingly. The two men have clearly orchestrated this performance before. Officer Bradley takes the witness stand with military precision. His hand rests on a Bible as he swears to tell the truth, the irony lost on no one who witnessed his actual behavior. Officer Bradley, Stevens begins, please describe the defendant's behavior during your traffic stop. She was driving erratically, swerving between lanes, clearly distracted or impaired. When I approached her vehicle, she immediately became argumentative and uncooperative. Diana shakes her head slightly, but Mitchell places a calming hand on her arm. She kept insisting she hadn't done anything wrong, despite clear evidence of traffic violations. Classic signs of someone who thinks they're above the law. Objection, Mitchell interjects. This is speculation, not factual testimony. Overruled. The officer is qualified to assess suspicious behavior. Bradley continues his fabricated account. She refused to cooperate with standard safety procedures, questioned my authority, and attracted a crowd of supporters who began interfering with the investigation. Did you fear for your safety, Officer Bradley? Absolutely. Her aggressive attitude and the gathering crowd created a potentially dangerous situation. Diana's supporters in the gallery exchange incredulous looks. Some pull out phones, checking their own recordings of the actual events. Your Honor. Mitchell rises for cross-examination. Officer Bradley, do you have dashboard camera footage of this alleged erratic driving? Bradley's confidence wavers slightly. The camera was experiencing technical difficulties that evening. How convenient. What about your written report of the incident? Standard protocol, nothing unusual to note. Mitchell approaches the witness stand. Officer Bradley, in your report, you describe Ms. Washington as typical of her demographic. What did you mean by that? Stevens jumps up. Objection, relevance. I'll allow it, Thornfield says, curious to see where this leads. I meant typical of people who don't respect law enforcement, Bradley stammers. And what demographic would that be exactly? Bradley's face reddens. I don't know what you're implying. Mitchell produces a folder thick with documents. Officer Bradley, how many complaints have been filed against you for racial bias in the past 5 years? Objection! Stevens practically shouts. Sustained! This court will not allow character assassination of our law enforcement officers. Diana watches this judicial theater with growing disgust. Every objection by the defense gets overruled. Every prosecution argument gets embraced enthusiastically. Mitchell presents Diana's clean driving record spanning 25 years, character witnesses ready to testify, community involvement documentation, evidence of her contributions to local charities and civic organizations. Thornfield dismisses it all with waves of his hand. Mr. Mitchell, your client's alleged community involvement doesn't excuse law-breaking. If anything, it makes her behavior more disappointing. The gallery murmurs with disapproval. Even court staff exchange uncomfortable glances at Thornfield's obvious bias. Furthermore, Thornfield continues, his voice rising with righteous indignation, this court has seen too many defendants like Ms. Washington. People who move into our communities and think their previous associations or connections grant them immunity from local laws. Diana's hands clench into fists under the table. Mitchell scribbles furious notes. Your Honor, Mitchell tries one more time. Ms. Washington has lived in this community for 15 years without incident. This appears to be a case of selective enforcement based on... I'll determine what this appears to be, Counselor, and I don't appreciate implications about this court's integrity. Thornfield shuffles his papers with obvious relish, preparing for his moment of theatrical justice. The courtroom falls silent, except for the buzzing fluorescent lights and the scratch of the court reporter's fingers on keys. Justice is about to be perverted once again in Millbrook County Court. And everyone in the room knows it, except the man wearing the black robes. Judge Thornfield leans forward in his chair, savoring his moment of absolute power. His pale eyes gleam with satisfaction as he prepares to deliver what he believes will be a crushing blow to Diana's dignity. Ms. Washington, he begins, his voice dripping with condescension. Your attitude in this courtroom today confirms Officer Bradley's assessment completely. Diana sits perfectly still, her hands folded on the defendant's table. The gallery behind her holds its collective breath. You clearly believe you're exempt from the rules that govern the rest of us law-abiding citizens, Thornfield continues, his voice rising with theatrical indignation. Your sense of entitlement is frankly disgusting. James Mitchell starts to object, but Diana places a gentle hand on his arm. Something in her expression makes him pause. Thornfield pounds his gavel once for emphasis. This court has had enough defendants like you. People who think their background or connections place them above our local laws. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead as tension fills the courtroom like electricity before a storm. 6 months suspended license, $2,500 in fines, 100 hours of community service, and mandatory defensive driving classes. Thornfield announces with obvious relish. Maybe that will teach you some humility and respect for— Your Honor, Diana interrupts quietly, rising from her chair. Thornfield's face turns red with rage. How dare you interrupt this court? Sit down immediately or I'll hold you in contempt. Your Honor, before you finalize this sentence, I believe you should see this. Diana reaches into her jacket pocket with deliberate, measured movements. The gallery leans forward as one, sensing something momentous approaching. She produces an official identification wallet, leather-worn smooth from years of use. Her movements are calm, controlled, and powerful. I am Governor Diana Washington of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. The words hang in the air like smoke from an explosion. Diana opens the wallet, revealing the official gold state seal and identification badge clearly visible to everyone in the courtroom. The morning light catches the metallic surface, sending reflections dancing across the ceiling. Pin-drop silence descends like a heavy blanket. Someone in the gallery whispers, "Oh my God," so quietly it sounds like a prayer. Thornfield's face drains of all colors. His hands freeze mid-gesture, still holding the gavel like a weapon that suddenly became useless. His mouth opens and closes like a fish gasping for air. Officer Bradley, standing near the back of the courtroom, looks like he's about to vomit. His uniform suddenly seems too tight, too hot, too much like a costume in a play that's gone horribly wrong. That can't be." Thornfield stammers, his voice cracking like a teenager's. James Mitchell rises smoothly, producing additional documentation from his briefcase. Your Honor, Governor Washington has maintained her private residence in Millbrook County since before taking office 6 years ago. She values her privacy and connection to this community. The court reporter's fingers have stopped moving entirely. She stares at her keyboard like it might provide answers to questions she doesn't know how to ask. Diana's voice remains calm, steady, and powerful. I was returning from grocery shopping when Officer Bradley pulled me over without legitimate cause. Everything that followed has been carefully documented. The gallery erupts in whispers that sound like wind through leaves. Phones emerge from pockets and purses as people realize they're witnessing history in the making. News crews, alerted by community activists, begin pushing through the courtroom doors. Camera flashes start popping like fireworks as reporters sense the biggest story of their careers unfolding. Thornfield's hands shake as he fumbles with his papers. Sweat beads on his forehead despite the courthouse's aggressive air conditioning. "Governor Washington," he gasps. Had I known, this is highly irregular. Surely we can resolve this matter." Diana's eyes narrow slightly. "Are you suggesting you would have treated me differently if you'd known my position, Your Honor? That justice applies differently based on someone's status or connections?" The question hangs in the air like an accusation waiting for a verdict. Thornfield's mouth opens and closes silently. Behind him, Officer Bradley attempts to slip toward the exit, but finds his path blocked by reporters and community members who formed an impromptu barrier. "Officer Bradley," Diana calls out without turning around, "please remain. Your testimony this morning was quite illuminating." Bradley freezes like a deer in headlights, trapped between the door and the truth. Diana turns back to face Thornfield, her posture straight and commanding. "Your Honor, I move for immediate dismissal of all charges, given the complete lack of evidence and the apparent bias demonstrated throughout these proceedings." Thornfield nods frantically. "Of course, Governor. Immediately dismissed, case closed, all charges dropped." "I'm not finished!" The words cut through the courtroom like a blade through silk. Diana steps closer to the bench, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to commanding rooms full of senators and cabinet members. "For 6 years, I've heard complaints about bias in this courtroom. Today, I experienced it firsthand. The pattern of behavior I've witnessed represents a systematic violation of civil rights under color of law." Cameras click rapidly as photographers capture every moment of this historic confrontation. Thornfield shrinks back in his chair like he's trying to disappear into the judicial robes that no longer protect him. Every citizen who enters this courtroom deserves equal treatment under law, regardless of their race, background, or economic status, Diana continues. What I experienced today was not justice. It was prejudiced to wear a black robe. The power dynamic has completely reversed in less than 5 minutes. The judge who moments ago was dispensing harsh punishment now sits powerless before the highest elected official in the state. The officer who believed he could abuse his authority with impunity now faces the prospect of federal investigation. And the woman they thought was just another defendant to intimidate now stands revealed as someone with the power to ensure this never happens again. Justice is about to have its day in Millbrook County. Finally. Judge Thornfield's hands tremble as he grips the edge of his bench, knuckles white against dark wood. Sweat drips from his forehead onto official court documents, creating small, dark circles on legal letterhead. "Governor Washington, please accept my most sincere and humble apologies," he stammers, his voice cracking like thin ice. "This was all a terrible misunderstanding. I've always been a strong supporter of your administration's initiatives." Diana's expression remains stone-cold professional. "Judge Thornfield, do you routinely make racist remarks to defendants in your courtroom?" "I never... That wasn't... You're mischaracterizing my words completely," Thornfield sputters, his judicial composure crumbling like a house of cards in a hurricane. The gallery watches in stunned silence as the man who wielded absolute power moments ago becomes a desperate politician trying to save his career. "Your Honor," Diana continues, her voice cutting through his excuses, "you referred to me as you people and suggested my kind needed to learn respect. How do you explain those comments?" Thornfield's mouth opens and closes wordlessly. Behind him, court staff exchange horrified glances, realizing they've witnessed their boss commit career suicide in real time. Jose Martinez rises from the front row, holding his phone high. "Your Honor, I have video footage of the entire traffic stop. Officer Bradley's behavior and racist comments are clearly documented." He approaches the bench, his phone screen glowing with damning evidence. "Would the court like to review Officer Bradley's actual conduct?" The phone's audio fills the silent courtroom, Bradley's voice calling Diana your type and threatening to teach her your kind some manners. Every word echoes off marble walls like verbal bullets. Thornfield's face goes ashen. Several people in the gallery gasp audibly at hearing the racism so clearly documented. Officer Bradley, trapped near the courthouse entrance, begins walking toward the bench with the defeated posture of a man whose world is ending. His crisp uniform now seems like a costume from a play that's gone catastrophically wrong. "Your Honor, Governor Washington," Bradley's voice shakes like autumn leaves, "I made a terrible mistake." "I let my personal feelings affect my professional judgment." Diana turns to face him directly. "Personal feelings about what exactly, Officer Bradley?" Bradley's face flushes red, then pale, then red again. I can't excuse my behavior. It was completely wrong and unprofessional. That's not what I asked. What personal feelings influenced your treatment of me?" The question hangs in the air like a noose waiting for a neck. Heavy footsteps echo through the courtroom as Chief of Police Robert Carter enters with official documents clutched in his weathered hands. His uniform bears the weight of 30 years in law enforcement, and his expression shows the pain of watching one of his officers destroy everything he's worked to build. "Governor Washington," Chief Carter's voice carries the authority of command and the humility of someone cleaning up an inexcusable mess. "Officer Bradley is suspended without pay effective immediately, pending full internal and federal investigation." He approaches Bradley with an outstretched hand. "Badges and weapons. Now." Bradley's hands shake as he unpins the badge from his chest. The small piece of metal that once represented authority and respect now feels heavy as lead in his palm. His service weapon follows, its weight seemingly doubled by shame. I personally apologize for this department's complete failure, Chief Carter continues, addressing Diana directly. This behavior violates everything we're supposed to represent. Judge Thornfield watches his co-conspirators' public humiliation with growing horror, realizing his own fate is sealed. Governor Washington, Thornfield tries one more desperate gambit. I'll be recusing myself from all future proceedings involving... I'll be stepping down from the bench immediately for health reasons. Diana's laugh is sharp as broken glass. Judge Thornfield, stepping down won't address the systematic pattern of bias that brought us here today. Reporters flood through the courtroom doors like water through a broken dam. Camera flashes pop continuously as microphones thrust forward like weapons seeking truth. Governor Washington, how long has this judicial bias been occurring? Shouts one reporter. Will there be a federal investigation? Demands another. What reforms will you implement? Calls a third. Diana raises her hand, and the chaos subsides into respectful silence. Even in a moment of personal vindication, she commands the room with natural authority. This incident represents systematic problems that extend far beyond this courtroom, she announces, her voice carrying to every corner of the building. What happened to me today happens to countless citizens who don't have my resources or platform. Behind her, Bradley slumps against the wall, his career officially over. Thornfield clutches his gavel like a security blanket, understanding that his reign of biased justice has ended forever. Justice delayed is justice denied, Diana continues. But justice delivered even late can still heal communities and restore faith in our institutions. The cameras capture every word as history writes itself in real time. Within 24 hours, the video of Diana's courtroom revelation spreads across social media like wildfire in dry grass. Justice. For Diana trends nationally as millions watch Judge Thornfield's racist remarks and Officer Bradley's traffic stop footage side by side. CNN leads with the story at 6 p.m. Shocking. Governor experiences judicial bias firsthand. Fox News counters with, Governor's traffic stop raises questions about special treatment. MSNBC devotes an entire hour to racism in America's courtrooms. Diana sits in her official governor's office, mahogany desk covered with legal briefs and investigation requests. The seal of Pennsylvania gleams behind her as she reviews options with her chief of staff. The FBI wants to open a federal civil rights investigation, her aide reports, scrolling through messages on his tablet. The state attorney general is reviewing Thornfield's entire judicial record. The Judicial Conduct Board has expedited proceedings. Diana nods grimly. What about the community response? Town hall meeting tonight. Standing room only. People are finally ready to talk. At Millbrook Community Center that evening, over 300 residents packed folding chairs arranged in neat rows. The smell of fresh coffee mingles with nervous energy as people who've suffered in silence finally find their voices. Margaret Thompson, an elderly black woman, approaches the microphone with trembling hands. Judge Thornfield gave my grandson 6 months in jail for something a white boy got probation for the same week. Same crime, same circumstances, different skin color. The crowd murmurs in recognition and shared pain. Carlos Rivera stands next, his work-worn hands gripping the podium. He called my family typical when we couldn't pay his excessive fines immediately. Made us feel like criminals for being poor. One by one, stories pour out like water through a broken dam. 15 years of systematic bias documented in painful detail. Harsh sentences, excessive fines, humiliating remarks. A pattern so clear it could be seen from space. Jose Martinez records everything on his phone, creating an unofficial archive of judicial misconduct. This needs to be preserved, he tells Diana during a break. People need to know this wasn't an isolated incident. 3 days later, FBI agents carry boxes of files from Thornfield's chambers like pallbearers removing evidence of judicial death. Court records spanning his entire tenure get loaded into unmarked vans for federal analysis. Special Agent Maria Santos leads the investigation, her badge gleaming under courthouse fluorescent lights. Preliminary review shows clear patterns of discriminatory sentencing based on defendant demographics, she announces at a press conference. The statistics paint a damning picture. Black defendants received sentences averaging 300% longer than white defendants for identical crimes. Latino families paid fines 250% higher for similar violations. Appeals were denied at rates inversely correlated with defendant skin color. Officer Bradley's personnel file reveals 17 complaints of racial bias over 5 years, all dismissed by supervisors who claimed insufficient evidence. Dashboard camera footage mysteriously malfunctioned during stops involving minority drivers with suspicious frequency. Internal Affairs. Detective James Wu reviews the evidence with growing disgust. The pattern is so obvious we should have caught it years ago. We failed these communities completely. 2 weeks after Diana's revelation, federal prosecutors announce formal charges at the courthouse steps. U.S. Attorney Rebecca Martinez stands before a forest of microphones and camera lenses. Judge Richard Thornfield faces federal charges of violating civil rights under color of law, conspiracy to deny equal protection, and judicial misconduct, she declares. Officer Bradley faces conspiracy charges and violation of civil rights. The trial begins 6 months later in federal court, where Thornfield sits at the defendant's table wearing an expensive suit instead of judicial robes. His lawyers struggle to explain away mountains of evidence documenting systematic racism. Diana takes the witness stand on a Tuesday morning, raising her right hand to swear an oath to the same Constitution Thornfield violated repeatedly. "What happened to me was wrong," she testifies, her voice steady and clear. "But I had resources to fight back. How many others suffered in silence because they lacked my platform?" The gallery nods in unified agreement. Dozens of Thornfield's victims sit in the front rows, finally seeing their tormentor face justice. Dr. Jennifer Chang, a statistical expert from Georgetown University, presents data analysis that destroys any pretense of coincidence. Charts and graphs fill courtroom screens, showing discriminatory patterns impossible to explain except through intentional bias. The probability of these sentencing disparities occurring by chance is less than 0.001%, she testifies. This represents systematic, deliberate discrimination. Thornfield's defense attorney, clearly outmatched, attempts damage control. "Your Honor, Judge Thornfield was under tremendous stress, dealing with heavy caseloads and difficult circumstances." Federal prosecutor Martinez destroys this excuse during cross-examination. "Stress doesn't explain calling defendants "you people" or "typical of your kind." Stress doesn't explain 300% sentencing disparities based solely on skin color." The prosecution plays courtroom audio recordings of Thornfield's racist remarks to previous defendants. Each tape drives another nail into his professional coffin. Officer Bradley testifies as part of a plea agreement, his voice barely audible as he admits to targeting minority drivers. "I was taught that certain neighborhoods and certain people required extra attention," he confesses. "I see now how wrong that was." Community members fill the gallery every day, watching justice finally unfold in their favor. Mrs. Carter brings homemade cookies for other spectators. Jose Martinez live streams proceedings for people who can't attend. After 2 weeks of testimony, the federal jury deliberates for only 4 hours. "Have you reached a verdict?" asks federal judge Patricia Williams. The jury foreman stands, his voice echoing off marble walls. "We have, Your Honor." On all counts of civil rights violations, we find the defendant Richard Thornfield guilty. Thornfield's wife sobs in the gallery as his supporters file out in shame and disappointment. Judge Williams addresses Thornfield directly during sentencing. "You perverted justice and betrayed your sacred oath to uphold the Constitution. Your actions damaged not just individual victims, but public faith in our entire judicial system." She pauses for emphasis, letting the weight of his crimes settle over the courtroom. "Richard Thornfield, I sentence you to 2 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years supervised probation and a lifetime ban from any judicial service. You will also pay $50,000 in fines to support civil rights education programs." In a separate proceeding, Officer Bradley receives 18 months in federal prison and a permanent ban from law enforcement anywhere in the United States. Outside the courthouse, Diana addresses a crowd of supporters and media representatives. "Today, justice prevailed. But this is just the beginning of necessary reforms to ensure equal treatment under law for every citizen." The convictions send shockwaves through judicial and law enforcement communities nationwide. Reform movements gain momentum as other victims find courage to speak out. Thornfield and Bradley's names become cautionary tales in law schools and police academies, examples of how unchecked bias destroys careers and communities. Justice, delayed but not denied, finally arrives in Millbrook County. 6 months later, Diana sits in her private study, morning sunlight streaming through tall windows behind her desk. The American flag stands proudly in the corner as she looks directly into the camera, her expression calm but determined. "That traffic stop changed everything," she begins, her voice carrying the weight of hard-won wisdom. "Not just for me, but for an entire community that had suffered in silence for far too long." The same courthouse where she was once humiliated now bears a bronze plaque commemorating the Washington Civil Rights decision. Inside, Judge Maria Santos presides over proceedings with fairness that would have seemed impossible under Thornfield's reign. Judge Santos, the first Latina judge in Millbrook County history, reviews case files in chambers once occupied by hatred. Her sentencing records show a 95% reduction in racial disparities, proving that justice can be colorblind when administered by those committed to equality. "The reforms we implemented weren't just about punishment," Diana continued from her study. "They were about prevention. About making sure this never happens again to anyone." Comprehensive police reform swept through Pennsylvania like cleansing rain. Body cameras became mandatory for all traffic stops. Racial bias training expanded from optional seminars to required quarterly education. Community oversight boards gained real power to investigate complaints and recommend discipline. Diana jogs through the same Millbrook neighborhood where Bradley once humiliated her. But now, community members wave enthusiastically, their faces bright with genuine affection and respect. "Morning, Governor," Jose Martinez calls from his store, the same corner shop where their friendship began. "How's the new bike path project coming along?" "Breaking ground next month, Jose." Maria's going to love cycling to school safely. The bike path represents more than recreation. It symbolizes investment in communities previously neglected, resources flowing toward people who matter as much as anyone else. At Millbrook Community Center, Diana addresses a diverse crowd gathered for the monthly Justice and Accountability Forum she established. These meetings give residents direct access to discuss concerns with law enforcement and judicial officials. "Justice isn't just about laws and courtrooms," she tells the assembled crowd. "It's about treating every person with dignity and respect, regardless of their background, appearance, or economic status." Police Chief Carter, promoted after implementing comprehensive reforms, nods in agreement from the front row. His department's complaint rate dropped 60% after adopting community policing practices and bias training. The changes extended far beyond Millbrook County. Diana's experience sparked a statewide movement examining judicial bias in all 67 Pennsylvania counties. Federal legislation bearing her name now requires regular audits of sentencing patterns nationwide. "I was fortunate to have a position that eventually protected me," Diana reflects, walking through the courthouse where justice now flows equally for all. "But every person deserves that same protection under law, whether they're a governor or a grocery store clerk." Statistical evidence proves the reforms work. Voter registration in Millbrook County increased 40% as citizens gained confidence in their system. 5 community members launched successful campaigns for local office, bringing diverse voices to positions of power. Mrs. Carter now serves on the Police Oversight Board. Tom Peterson chairs the Judicial Reform Committee. Even teenagers from the basketball court attend city council meetings, understanding that civic engagement protects their futures. If you've witnessed injustice, speak up, Diana urges, looking directly into the camera with fierce intensity. If you've experienced bias, report it. If you have privilege, use it to protect others who don't. A federal civil rights office opened in Millbrook, providing resources for victims of discrimination. The office processes complaints that once disappeared into bureaucratic black holes, ensuring every voice gets heard and every injustice gets investigated. The ripple effects continue spreading across America. Other governors implement similar reforms. Police departments voluntarily adopt Pennsylvania's training standards. Law schools add mandatory courses on recognizing and preventing judicial bias. Change is possible, Diana states with absolute conviction. Justice is achievable, but it requires all of us to stand up when we see something wrong being done. Her final words carry the authority of someone who transformed personal humiliation into systemic reform. The next time you witness someone being treated unfairly because of their race, their accent, their appearance, or their background, will you have the courage to speak up, or will you walk away and hope someone else takes action? Share this story if you believe justice should be truly blind to race and status. Comment below. Have you ever witnessed bias you wish you'd challenged? Follow for more stories of courage overcoming injustice. One final question appears in bold letters. How many Judge Thornfields are still on benches across America? Diana's voice returns as a whisper that carries the force of thunder. The answer might surprise you. The solution starts with you.